Jax is an actor. Beloved by many fans, Jax enjoys significant popularity within the Amazing Digital Circus fandom. He perfectly fits the misunderstood bad boy archetype that has been receiving much love and attention in various fandoms. Bad boys like Jax are tragic figures haunted by their dark past and hiding their true feelings behind a brooding mask. Ultimately, though, they have a good heart. But is it really the case with Jax? Is he really a misunderstood troubled soul or a genuine asshole who enjoys tormenting others? I believe he has the best of both worlds. Hello everyone, I am Serpentine, and in this video I will analyze the character of Jax, his coping mechanisms, masking, and his relationship with the other circus members. Let's get to it. Ever since the moment Jax first appeared on the screen, I knew he would enjoy immense popularity among the fans. He's precisely the kind of cool bad boy type that so many people fawn over. I am saying this without any malice. I am a Jax fan myself. What I am trying to convey is that Jax is consciously designed to attract a specific type of audience and create certain kinds of expectations. Mainly because he's cooler and more nonchalant than the other characters, who seem to be more troubled by their situation than this rabbit. In contrast to the other circus members, Jax seems to be enjoying himself on a day-to-day basis. He behaves precisely as expected during the adventures, that is to say, getting into character and playing the roles in a setting. Yes, Jax plays the role of an asshole in every scenario, but he plays it well. He seems to not mind the adventures and enjoys having them as a means of not only avoiding insanity, but also providing his own entertainment. While he is not forced to behave in a certain way, Jax thrives in chaos and violence, but does so without malicious intent. It may sound strange, but it is precisely because the digital circus is a virtual space and not a real environment. It allows Jax to enjoy destruction. Since there is no threat of dying, and pain is reduced significantly, Jax gets to do whatever he wants without real consequences. Well, not entirely. The consequences of Jax's actions are social ones, not physical. It is not a stretch to say that Jax is alienated from the other circus members. Not in a sense that he is pushed out of the social circle, seen as the gang doesn't have a choice but to interact with each other every day, but more in the sense that he is deemed the troublemaker and someone best to be ignored. Zubul often mentions just ignoring Jax as a means of dealing with him, but it's not a working strategy since Jax imposes himself on others and makes himself heard. I don't think there is anybody out there who genuinely likes Jax. Pomni is probably getting there, but we will see what episode 6 will bring. Because I very much feel like it is a calm before the storm. The point is, besides Zubul and Pomni, nobody in the circus is actually capable of telling Jax off or stopping his antics. Jax is the antagonizing figure in the group's dynamic, and he seems to enjoy that role. That position is something he consciously chose. When we look at Jax, we get the impression that he doesn't really need anybody. He plays the role of a self-serving person so well that most of the people around him have given up on the idea of forming any sort of healthy relationship with him. In any other kind of situation, Jax wouldn't be tolerated, but since everyone is trapped, he can't not be part of the gang. Even so, I find it fascinating that he often takes leading positions in the adventures when the situation demands that, and people follow him despite his plans causing chaos more often than not. In the first episode, he was in charge of the situation, forming teams and giving orders. It was his plan that led to a truck chase in episode 2. Even in episode 5, Jax seemed to enjoy being the center of attention and led his fellow circus members into more violent accidents. What I'm getting at is that Jax definitely has charisma and a strength of character and can be a leader when he wants to. If he didn't choose to behave the way he does, I definitely can see Jax being the leader of this group. It might also be one of the reasons why Pomni gravitates towards Jax. I think both of them are strong-willed individuals. Only Pomni wears her heart on her sleeve, while Jax does everything to avoid showing weakness. But to be honest with you, I believe Jax wants companionship just as much as anyone else. He's not a heartless monster incapable of feeling empathy. Though it is not said explicitly, we were given hints on numerous occasions that Jax cares about his fellow circus members. Firstly, in the pilot, when we get to hear that Jax checks the rooms of his circus members. Yes, you could perceive it as a joke, haha, Jax doesn't care about personal space and whatnot. But I saw it as him checking on the other characters to see if they haven't abstracted yet. He also says a similar phrase in the show. Next, Jax looks visibly hurt when Regatha mentions holding a funeral for Kaufmo. If he were headless or didn't care at all, he wouldn't react the way he did. Lastly, the 5th episode tells us in a straightforward way that there was someone Jax cared deeply about who's not with the cast anymore. Considering it's impossible to leave the circus, it is safe to assume that Jax's friend, who is theorized to be the frog named Ribbit, abstracted, which in turn caused a shift in Jax's relationship with other characters. I do think that before this accident, Jax's relationship with others wasn't as bad as it is now, but Ribbit's abstraction definitely changed Jax for the worse. Still, it is important to stress that Jax made a conscious choice to be the way he is. In many ways, Jax's relationship with others is damaged by his way of coping with life in the circus. Jax's behavior is categorized by his apparent lack of care for the thought of other circus members. At the first glance, one would think that Jax's only mission is to entertain himself, no matter if it's at the expense of others. We see him tossing Pomni outside a moving truck, pushing Regatha into a deep fryer, and sucking an innocent ghost into a vacuum cleaner, among many other things. It is hard to excuse this kind of behavior, and nobody does, much less Jax. As he says himself, his only motivation is to see funny things happen to other people. During the adventures, Jax seems to enjoy himself the most when a life-threatening or violent situation of some sort happens. He evidently gets sad when he can't continue the chase after Gamigu and his friends, and looks positively pissed while being tied up in episode 3 to prevent his further antics. When it comes to his relationships with others, they are distant at best and openly hostile at worst. Zubul is one step away from fighting Jax, and Regatha, for all her positivity, openly admits she hates Jax under the influence of the stupid sauce. And Jax seems to be content with how things are, tormenting and bullying every member of the circus physically, verbally and emotionally. In short, it is easy to assume that Jax is a selfish, self-serving person who enjoys chaos and doesn't care for anyone but himself. I must disagree. To start, I don't deny all I said before about Jax. He indeed does all these horrible things to the other circus members, and he enjoys chaos and violence. But there's more to Jax than that. Let's begin with his bad boy persona, that Jax also carefully constructed. I do think that that's just it, a persona. Something to play, something to act. This whole selfish routine Jax goes through every day has been practiced and polished to perfection. But it's not who Jax is, at least not entirely. It's a coping mechanism to endure his life in a digital nightmare where he is stuck. We get the first clue at the beginning of the first episode, where Jax openly refers to the other circus members as characters, which he does several times. Although I don't remember him using this term in the following episodes, it is nevertheless strong evidence of how Jax chooses to perceive reality around him as a play. There are two interpretations of this mindset that I can come up with. Either Jax views everyone as characters, himself included, or thinks of others as NPCs in his own play, where he is the only real person. Or it could be a mix of both, where Jax acknowledges that he plays a role, but he still chooses himself to be the center of this little show. Either way, it is a conscious decision to separate his fellow circus members as individuals from the wacky characters they play on a day-to-day basis. With them being so physically changed and turned into avatars, it is indeed easy to forget that they are, in fact, actual people put inside an endless torture device. Every circus member is coping in their own way, as we have seen throughout many episodes. Regatha is overly nice and positive, while Zubul is too tired to care, and Kinga is safe in his insanity. For Jax, disassociating and playing a role is a form of coping. By turning himself and fellow people into actors on a stage, it is easier to pretend that this is all a game that they do not suffer through, but through their characters. I understand that what I mean to say sounds a bit convoluted, but let's put it in that way. Do you remember how we used to play pretend as children? For Jax, his whole behavior is a big pretend play, a role he can't break or it becomes real. To be fair, the world the gang is stuck in is majorly free of consequences. They can't leave, don't need food or sleep, their adventures are artificially constructed, and I am yet to see what happens if they quote-unquote fail. Over time, no wonder one becomes dull. And that's when the only real danger comes in. Abstraction is the only punishment that can come to the characters, and it happens when they give up entirely. Honestly, considering the nature of their life in this circus, if the characters don't find a way to escape, all of them will be abstracted sooner or later. Jax's endless entertainment of himself is actually a good way of keeping his thoughts from the whole situation. Not only that, but also his antagonistic behavior gives the group something to keep themselves busy with. Jax is the villain that they can unanimously hate on. Now, I do not believe that Jax has noble goals in mind. I don't think he plays the villain in a self-sacrificial act to keep the other circus members from going insane. Jax is not that type of character. He is a chaotic, selfish, violence-loving sadist who is terrified of showing weakness. But he also cares about his fellow circus members and is clearly traumatized from losing Ribbit. Does it excuse his behavior? Certainly not. Yes, his circumstances and backstory can explain the way he is now, but not excuse it. We make the choice which version of ourselves to be every day. When we look at Kinga, we see a person who lost someone closest to him, his wife, and spent years in a digital hell. Yes, he clearly became insane as a way to cope, but we do not see him being violent or dismissive towards others. How about Zubul, who is constantly too tired to care, but actually does care? True, they don't go on adventures and can occasionally swear, but their moments with Gangle show how warm and caring they are. Jax is a great character because he demonstrates the way one can become selfish and distant while faced with great difficulties. Still, behind his facade is a person as terrified of his situation as any other in the circus. Ultimately, I do think there will come a moment when the patience of the other characters will run thin, and Jax will be forced to face how his way of coping hurts others and perhaps even himself. But for now, let's hope this rabbit gives us many more entertaining, violent and self-destructive adventures. Thank you for staying up until the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one. Or at least I hope. Bye bye!